Hello, my name is Karina. This is Creative Everyday Life, and this is my knitting podcast I am making on this channel. I believe it is episode 9 I'm working on right now, and I just want to start this video by saying thank you to everyone that is new on this channel. I got a lot of new subscribers from making the last knitting podcast, and it got a lot of views too, so thank you to anyone who have continued to stick around, and thank you to everyone who is new, and welcome if this is your first video. As I said, my name is Karina and I live in Denmark, and we are living out on the countryside on a tiny homestead where we try to grow a lot of our own food, but I also try to make a lot of my clothes from knitting and sewing and so on. But this video will be a knitting podcast, so I will focus on the knitting part. I just poured up a cup of tea from some of the herbs we have grown last year. So I will be drinking that. I hope that you have something nice to drink or something to knit as you are following along in this video. Personally, I like to, when I'm watching knitting podcasts, I like to be knitting or doing something cozy. I think it is very nice to watch a lot of other knitting podcasts just as inspiration, and it feels like talking with knitting friends without have to go anywhere. So I hope you are well, and let's get into it. So normally I would start with what I'm wearing, but I don't remember what the pattern name of this sweater is. This is an Icelandic sweater, and I do believe it's from a book called Icelandic Knitting or something like that, but I'm not quite sure of it. I knitted this back in 2019, and I had a lot of things going on in my personal life, so I simply don't remember. Only that it was from a book that I bought from one of my friends, and I knitted this pattern 3 times. One for myself, one for someone in my class at that time, and one for my husband. His sweater is in blue and white, and the 2 other was in the light gray and the dark gray. So it is the funny story of the sweater I'm wearing. But let's get into some of the finished objects that I have from last month. So it has been a month since my last knitting podcast, and I expect to continue putting one up each month. just so that I have some contents, and also so that if you're following my temperature blanket, then I will have an entire month made before the next video. So let's go to the finished object. The first finished object is the one that is laying here behind me. So if you saw my last video, you saw that I had some yarn that I did not know what to make from, and it was an Italian yarn made partially from wool, and let me just get, so this is the label from it. So it's called Lana Ghetto, and it's made in Italy, and this one, the brand is Lana Ghetto, I think, and then this specific yarn is called Concord. And as I mentioned in the last video, this is made 50% of wool, 30% of acrylic, and then this last 20% I was not sure of because it doesn't really say on this. And when I googled it, it first just came up as others, and that was very suspicious to me because what is that? But after further research, I found out it is from a specific nettle, so a plant fiber, that the last 20% is made of. I do not believe that you can buy this brand, well, the brand you can buy, but the specific type of yarn anymore. At least I could not find it. But this is for 50 grams, it's 50 meters. So this is the same as if you are buying Elefos Lobi or anything like that. That would be 100 grams for 100 meters, so that is the same. And I think that you can just use the yarn, or this yarn, or whatever yarn that you have, in the same kind of way. But I was using this because it was gifted to me from one of my co-workers. She didn't know what to do with it. She had it laying around for, I think, some years. I'm not sure how long, but she didn't know what to do with it and wanted to get rid of it, but didn't want to throw it out and waste it. So she asked if I wanted to have them, and there was 600 grams of yarn, so it was a decent portion. So I decided to look into some of my knitting books, and the one that I chose to knit from is this one. You may have seen her on Instagram. I actually started to see some of her sweaters in the fall, and I wanted to knit a lot of her patterns already. And then when my birthday came around in the fall, some of my friends actually gave me this one. So, and they did not know that I had seen her before. So I was very, very excited, and I'm still excited about this book. It has so many patterns that I really love. She is from Finland, and is working primarily with Icelandic wool. And if you have followed along, you will know that I love the Icelandic wool, and I love rustic wool in general. Yeah, a lot of her patterns I really like, also because it is color work, and primarily color work on the yoke. And I do believe all of her patterns is from bottom up, that you are knitting it, and I prefer that a lot. But yes, I am not sure how to say this Vilahula, I believe her brand is, and her name up here is Hailey Nicola. I'm not sure. She's Finnish, so it's they say things a little bit different than in some of the other Nordic countries, but she is clearly very talented, and this is the first of her books. She has made another book that I would love to own at some point in time, but we will see. I do think that knitting books, even if you never knit any patterns in them, I just think they are so inspirational to look through. I don't know if you call that in English, but we call it like dry knitting in Danish. That looking through the patterns without actually knitting them, and I really appreciate that. But let me just go to the one that I chose to make. So this one is the pattern that I chose to go from. It is yes, in the pattern it is written with Alafos Lobi. So it is the Icelandic wool that has the same yardage as the one that I had, and one of the reasons was that it was needing 600 grams for the background color, and that was what I had. And the other reason was that I wanted something where you could see the changing in the colors on the sweater. Because if you see this is a self-striping yarn, and I didn't want it to take anything away from the pattern. I just wanted the pattern to add something and not disturb the pretty colors. I really like the different brown colors there's in this. So I wanted something with a simple pattern. And then I had some of this white yarn that is from Hjertegarn. Thank you whoever wrote it, but I found out that this is actually a Danish brand, and yeah, this is the same type of yarn that I made the blue sweater in that I was showing last time with the it's called Peacock Sweater. But this one was a leftover part that I have also been gifted at a point long ago, and I had 200 grams of that, and I needed that for this part of the pattern. And then I bought this part up here that is also going into the feathers, and it's also the brown part around here on the sleeves. I bought that from Selfmade. They have made a couple of, well, they have made a lot of yarn in the last couple of years, and the brand name is Freya, I do believe. Yes, the brand name is called Freya. It looks like this. I don't know if you can see. And the one that I chose was the one that is called Warm-Hearted. It is 100% organic wool, and this is for 50 gram. It is 100 meters, so this is half the size of the other yarn. So I held it double. Yeah, and I do believe I used one extra skein than was in the pattern, but it might just be me that is knitting too loosely, I'm not sure. But I needed a little bit more than I had of yarn, and actually the problem was, let me just show you. So you can tell in my version the color is this brown, and in the pattern it is supposed to be the background color, but I ran out of this yarn just as I came to the neck, so I fortunately had enough to make the sweater, and the part that I have used to cast on that had a little tail, I used to knit under the armpits, because I was all out of yarn. I have not played Yarn Chicken this much in a long while, and it was a problem too on the other finished object I have, but I will show you that in a moment. But I actually think that this is looking really nice, and I like the softness of this. It is very soft, even though it is 100% wool. I actually find it more soft than this part that is only 50% wool, but I do think it is because there is this more fluffy fiber, maybe you can tell. It has a lot of loose fibers, and this sweater, I really love wearing it. It is nice and warm and everything, and I will definitely use this a lot, but I will not be buying this yarn another time. This yarn I will buy, but the background color here, the Lana Ghetto Concord, I will not be buying that. Of course I didn't buy it in this case, it was a gift from my coworker, and I am really happy about it, so don't misunderstand me. But it is leaving all of these little fibers everywhere. So if I'm wearing this with like a t-shirt underneath or anything, the t-shirt will be covered in little fluff afterwards. It is not a big problem, but yeah, I actually like it when the fabric is not fluffing everywhere. But I know that a lot of people like that it gives this, it has this little halo over the sweater. I don't know if you can tell. So it looks very soft and fluffy and everything, and it is very comfortable to wear. So I really like it, but I would not go out of my way to buy something like this myself. But yes, this is the first finished object. So let's go to the next one. So the next finished object is also made from the Freya warm-hearted yarn, 100% organic, and this will be a gift for my nephew. He will get it, I guess, in a couple of months or something. I'm not sure, but next time that they have any occasion, I do believe they will have some kind of party or something, but I'm not sure. But I will be gifting it in the near future, and here it is. So this is the sweater that I knitted for him. As you can tell, it is cable. This is actually a pattern made that is from Selfmade also. And it is the same either way. I prefer to make sweaters that don't have the German short rows in the back, just because I do find it much easier just to throw them on instead of have to figure out which side is which. And since I do a lot of color work, I also find it more pretty without them, but I have not tried. I have only made a few sweaters where the neck have been longer than the front part, so I would know. And as you can tell, it's not a problem. I'm not getting strangled or anything. But I'm sure you could put in short row if you wanted to, but I don't think that he would mind. But it is a very nice and comfortable and elastic sweater. I tried to knit this a size half-year old, I do believe, but when I checked my gauge, it was matching. The stitches would, well, the stitches would fit better if I was knitting the size 2-year-old number of stitches, then the gauge would fit with the yarn that I was using and all. But I just think it looks bigger than a half-year-old, but I don't know. I have no idea. But I have checked that the sleeves are big enough that I would be able to fit my own arm in it, but I'm sure that they could just turn the sleeves up like this, and then he will be able to use it for a longer time. But I don't know. I do think that it is very, very sweet, and it was a lot of fun, especially since it was a smaller project. Yeah. So this is my second finished object. I really like this. So this is my only 2 finished objects, and I do think that since they were both sweaters, that is actually a lot to have for 1 month. My first finished object is only counting halfway, since it is also one of my work in progress pieces at the same time. But let me just take a sip of my tea and we will get on to that one. Good, so the first of my work in progress, I will also take the time to make it kind of a finished object. It is this sock pattern that I'm working on. So the pattern is also made from Self-Made. And of course I need a second sock for this to be a complete object, finished object, but I just had to make this one finished so that I could show you. I just finished it a couple of days ago, I think. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 days ago, but I wanted to show you because I was almost done with it. So the pattern is a free pattern, just like the child sweater, and you can find it on their website. I got mine printed out at their shop for 5 kroner, so that is like $1. So I thought that was really nice, and the pattern is called Snowball Fight Socks. And I'm using some of their yarn for this as well. This is also called Fire, but the brand of this, not the brand, but the type of yarn is called Sensible. It is 100% wool, but it is superwash. And I normally don't like buying superwash because it is plastic coated wool, and yeah, I don't like the plastic yarn in general. Oops. But for socks it might actually help with prolonging their lives, because socks tend to get a lot of wear and tear, and I have tried to make 100% wool socks before that got holes really fast. So I do hope that these will be able to hold a lot longer. But I have seen people that seen places where you can buy sock yarn that is 100% wool, non-superwash. So I would definitely try that in the future, because I would prefer that a lot. But these are becoming very gorgeous anyways. So yeah, as you can tell, the heel has stripes on it, and other than the heel and the bottom of the foot, there are patterns all over. of course stripes is also a pattern, but it's more mindless. I do find that making the heel flap and gusset, I do believe that that is what it's called, making that with 2 colors is very difficult, and the same is picking up stitches in 2 colors. I thought that to be very difficult as well. I do think that I have saved, there was a big hole in one side afterwards, and I just think it was because of the cast on, or not cast on, because I was picking up stitches there, and I started with the on one side, of course. But other than that, I do think this is, they are very pretty anyways. They are a little tight for the size. This is supposed to be a size, this is supposed to be a size 40 to 42, which is the biggest size that they had. And I use European size 40 to 41. And I used that size in shoes, so I thought that these would be fine. But I do think they are a little tight, even though my gauge is fitting. But I am sure that they will be more elastic when I start to use them and stuff like that. It's not that they don't fit, but they fit very snugly, and I was not expecting that. So that is just something to think of if you want the same kind of pattern, but with more ease or more as a comfortable sock you can put over other socks. You might have to go a size up. In this case, it was not possible to make them a size bigger. But if you are, they only have the sizes 36 to 7 and 38 to 9, and then the 40 to 41. So there are only these 3 sizes. So it's not many options, but if you have knitted other patterns, I'm sure you could just put on more stitches for that. But I do really like the Norwegian stars on it. They are a lot of fun, and I do love these 2 and the little border out here. So the border and this pattern and the stars were all on the front 2 of the needles. I have been knitting with the 5 needles because I do think that is easier when I'm knitting socks. I do know that you can use magic loop, of course, but I don't think the gauge is holding up as well as it is with the just knitting with normal sock needles. But I'm sure if you do whatever you want, if you want to do it, I'm sure it will work out fine. I do use the magic loop for other things, as I will come in on later. But yeah, so I just need to make another sock, and then I will have a nice pair of very Norwegian kind of style. At least I'm thinking of Norway whenever I see these pretty stars, and I love them very much. So good. Let's get on to the next work in progress. So as I talked about the last time, I am working on a sweater for myself. This sweater is made with Icelandic wool, and I'm using Lelobi. The last time I showed you that I was working on the body, and I am finished with that part. So I'm really happy about that, because I do think that, well, this part was really fun, but the other part of it is quite tedious to be knitting. I have been knitting it as I have brought it to work and knit it in my breaks, and that have been very helpful, since I have been able to talk, or even if we had a meeting or something, then I could sit and knit and talk, and then slowly but steady I managed to get finished with the body of this sweater. I'm sure it will be very beautiful when it's done, but the fun part is in the yoke. So so the body is done, and of course that meant I had to work on some sleeves. And in this case I have used the magic loop. So I'm working on both sleeves at once. And I do believe I need 2 more increases on the sleeves, but then they're almost at the point where I just have to knit around until they are done. I've brought these to work also, just to get ahead and have something that is mindless to knit on. But right now I am knitting on them at home as well, because I really want to go to work on the yoke. And yeah, there's of course a little way yet, but I'm getting there. And yes, this is very exciting. And for the yoke part, there will be, well, you can see them here. It is these 3 colors that will be on the yoke part. So the light gray and the brown and the green, of course. But these 2 colors, the brown and the gray, will be the main colors on the yoke part. And it is a pattern made from Ikson, and it was given for free on their 20th anniversary. But I have really wanted to make this pattern for a long time anyways, so I'm really happy to be able to do it now. So this is my progress on this sweater. I'm getting there. I'm hoping in next video that I will either be working on the yoke, or maybe I will even be finished with it in a month. We will see. But yeah, if you did see the little video that I made where I went out in the snow on our property and sat and knitted, this was what I was working on at the time also. So yes. So I have 2 more projects that I'm working on. One of them is laying over here. So this is a sweater that I have started knitting on that will be for my husband. I did make him the headbands that I showed last time, and he really enjoyed that, and I have had a hard time making sweaters that he wanted to use. So I have made him 3 sweaters in the past. Actually 4 sweaters. The one was the first sweater that I ever attempted to make, and it did not turn out very well. So it I made it way too big, didn't know how to fix it, ended up sewing it together, cutting it, and at the edges you could see that I have sewn it together, and it was just not very pretty. So he didn't really get any use out of it. And I made that with acrylic, and it also grew a lot when it was washed and stuff. So I was not happy about it. The 2 next sweaters that I made was Icelandic because I really love them. As I mentioned, I made one of these for him, and then I made another one. But he finds them very scratchy. I don't, but he does. So he have worn them occasionally, but he finds them too scratchy and too warm, so he takes them off very fast. Then I made another pattern for, I made up a pattern for him and knitted another sweater, and this was, I believe it was Danish or Norwegian wool, but it was less rustic, so I hope that it would be a better fit, but it is still a little bit too scratchy for him and a little bit too warm. So I am trying again this time. And this is the sweater that I have started working on. I decided that I wanted to try and make another knitting pattern that I designed myself. So this is inspired by the screwdriver part that is called Torx. On the screws you can either have like a little star or have a flat one, or you can have Torx, and I know my husband really loves these since he have told me a lot about how wonderful they are to work with, and I do agree they are easier when you are screwing things out, especially if you have screws in the wall that have been there for a long time, or you need to take them in or out multiple times. It tends to be easier to get them out, and they will not as easily be destroyed, so you can't get them out, if that makes sense. If you have been working with any kind of screws and screwdrivers, you might know exactly what I'm talking about. But this is what it was inspired by. The yarn took me a little while to figure out what to use. I ended up using this 100% merino wool from Knitting for Olive. Knitting for Olive is a Danish brand. I do believe they are located in Copenhagen. Copenhagen, I was almost saying, which is a Danish word. But it is a Danish mother and a grandmother that decided to start making knitting patterns for children in the beginning, and then I do believe, and then they started making other knitting patterns, but they also made a yarn brand. So you can buy a lot of different kinds of yarn, but they try to be very transparent where it comes from, and make sure that the animals and people involved in the process of making the yarn is treated well and paid fairly, and so on. And then they also make yarn in a lot of different colors. So I do believe that there was this specific is called heavy merino, and I do believe that there was 53 different colors of this brand. And then they have, I do believe it is something around the 50s mark about with every type of yarn that they have, so that you can make, if you are using like a silk thread or a mohair thread or something, you can find one that matches exactly the other, like the merino and so on. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, that is what they are doing. I'm not sponsored by them in any kind of way. I just was looking for something that seemed to be sustainable, but and affordable, and 100% merino. A lot of merino is superwash, and as I mentioned before, I really prefer not to have the plastic in my sweaters and stuff like that. And I'm hoping to make this into a pattern that can be released, and yeah, so I want it also to be a brand where you can find yarn that is shipped a lot of places. I do believe they're shipping a lot of places, but you can also use other kind of yarn, of course. This is 125 meters for 100 grams, so it is very close to the Letlobi, and yeah, I like that kind of little thicker kind of yarn. But yes, so I am using one that is called Slate Green, and another one that is called Cloud. Yes, I only remember the Danish name. It's Sky in Danish, which means cloud, so it is the same name. And skifergrøn, which also is the same as slate green. So I bought yarn from them, and I have it stored over here. I also bought this other green. It is called Dusty Green, eller støvgrønt in Danish, and I do believe it would fit very nice with these if I wanted to, but if I don't want to, I can make something else with this. I bought 2 skeins of this, I believe. Yeah. So this is what I'm working on also, because one project is not enough, and I wanted to knit some color work. And I started with a sleeve, which I don't normally do, because I wanted to see if the pattern even made sense. And I did make a swatch, but I was not sure if my gauge was off when I was knitting it in the round, but it is spot on, so I'm really happy about that. I have also measured this next to some of his other sweaters, and it fits in size. I was unsure if this was too big, because it looks a lot bigger than my sleeves, but it is not. It is actually fitting, so that is very nice. Good. I only have one last work in progress to show you, so let's get on to that part. So the last thing that I'm working on, you guessed it maybe, is my temperature blanket. So I've made now a basket with all of my colors. As you can see, they're in here. So this is what it's looking like right now. Let me just take it out here. So if you didn't see it the last time, or you're new to temperature blankets, a temperature blanket is where you every day knit the highest temperature. In my case, you can use the lowest or the average temperature, but I'm using the highest temperature of every day. And I will knit the color that fits with that for an entire year. I am using this light gray to divide in, so that I know that this will be January and that this part is February. I don't know how to get this to lay flat, because I was actually knitting it back and forth in normal stitches a couple of times to make it lay flat, but it keeps on curling up on itself. Anyways, I hope that when I wash it, it will help. But yes, let me just take the temperatures so you can see. So this is how my temperature is arranged. So if it's below 3 degrees Celsius, it will be the black color. If it's between -2 and 0, it will be the dark green, and so on until it is above 30, or 30 or above. So this is the range that I have chosen to go with, and the colors that I have chosen to use. These are all Drops Alaska. So this print, it is wool. It might not come as a shock to anyone at this point, but yes, it is wool. And let me just see. Yeah, it just says 100% wool. And this is 50 grams is 70 meters, so it is a little bit thicker than Ravelry, yard wise, but I actually think it reminds a lot of it in some ways. So you can tell that it does not look thicker in any kind of way. I do believe that Letlobi is more fluffy. I don't know the word is. A lot of these Icelandic wool tend to be filled with a lot of air in between the textiles, so it might be because of that, and this is a little bit more tightly spun. I do think that is the difference, because they remind a lot. They remind a lot of each other. That is not how you say it. They remind me a lot of each other, anyways. But yes, of course, this is my all-time favorite Letlobi. If anyone followed me, they will know. But this is very, very soft, and this will be gifted at some point in the future when I'm done with it. So in 2025 it will be gifted to someone, but it is a very fun project, and I do color in the dates and write how many degrees it has been, the highest temperature in the area where this person is living. So I think that is a lot of fun. I do not knit every single day on this. I do think a lot of people panic about temperature blankets and stuff because it is every single day, but I usually knit a week or two at a time, because it takes me maybe 2 or 3 minutes for each row, so it is a lot to take it all forth and knit and then have to put it away again. But yeah, you can do it in a lot of different kind of ways anyways. I do think that the color work, the colors that have been so far is very pretty together, and I do think it is very interesting to see how the months are getting warmer. I made a temperature scarf that I showed last time, and it was the same for that year, that January was the coldest month, and then it got warmer. And it's actually interesting because I often think that February feels very cold, but it is not entirely true. It is, of course, cold. It's not like that, but it is not as cold as in January, especially this year. As you can tell, the black has only been used in this month, and also the dark green has only been used in this month. It doesn't mean that we have had only warmer temperatures, but the highest temperature has not been below 0 in February. So I do find that extremely interesting. But yeah, so this is how far I have gotten with this temperature blanket, and of course I will show you how long it has gotten next month. I actually do think that this is a very fun project that anyone, even if you don't want to knit something very complicated, can be a part of, because you can always start it later in the year or the next year. And so far it's going as I hoped for. It is supposed to be 1.5 meters, which is 4 or 5 feet, I think. not much else to say about this right now. I would love to know if you are working on a temperature blanket or on a sweater, and if you, like me, love wool, and especially Icelandic wool, or if you are more to other kind of materials. I do want to make more with Danish wool. This marine wool is made from a Danish company, but it's not from Denmark, and I would like to make some more of the, like this one, like Danish dansk pelsuld is one that it is kind of a post work in progress, but this is from Jelsholst Uldspinderi. It is it is made on a little island called Fyn in Denmark. Well, not little, but compared to the rest of the world, it's little. It is made on an island called Fyn. So, and I do believe that they're the only place where you can get spun your yarn in Denmark. I am not sure, but it is the only one that I know of. And they do make some yarn of Danish sheeps. So I would like to look into that at some point. This is fingering weight, and a lot of wool seem to be that. I do prefer to knit with the I'm not sure what it's called, but more like the Letlobi, where you are using a little bigger needle. But is it worsted weight? I'm not sure. I can't remember the terms of it because it's actually new for me. In Denmark we usually have been saying what needle size that was normal for it, but of course that it's not necessarily the needle size that you will be using to get the gauge that fits the yarn. So I do think we are going more over and looking at the yardage on how many meters for 100 grams. But yeah, anyways. Let me just check my note. So the only things that I have left on my notes are other knitting podcasts that I wanted to say is maybe something you can check out if you like this one. So I have started watching a knitting podcast that is called In Her Skein. It is a woman that lives in Italy. I do believe she's from Canada, if I'm not wrong. That is knitting, and she does very beautiful work so far. What I've seen, I've only seen 2 of her episodes. She has made a couple of shawls and is working on a couple of socks. I know that she have published one pattern of socks and is working on another. So I think that is really cool. And yeah, it looks very pretty when she is knitting. Another knitting podcast that I've been watching is Fiber Tales. It is a Danish knitter that is from Fyn. And I do believe that she has some of her parents' sheeps is making wool that they spin on the same place as I talked about before. But she is making very, very beautiful designs. I mentioned her in another video, and yeah, I really like her designs. It is not as much color work, but it is more interesting stitches and stuff. And I don't know if I like to knit that kind, but I think it is very beautiful, and I might have to try her patterns out at some point. Yes. Another knitter is Engineering Knits. I have watched a couple of her videos. Some of her knits are I don't know if it's knitting podcast she's making, I don't think so, but the videos I have been seeing, she had tried out vintage patterns, and she has also tried out a knitting machine and stuff like that that I have no knowledge about, so it was very interesting to look into how she was tackling those difficulties. So that was very interesting. Also, I can mention, if you speak Danish or want to hear someone speak Danish, there is a knitting podcast called Anja Strikkelykke, and it is a relatively new knitting podcast that is very cozy to watch, and she also makes very beautiful garments. So yeah, I think that is what I have for you today. I will end this video by showing you a little bit of b-roll from our property, but other than that, then I will just wish you and yours a very nice day. May God bless you. Hi.